You know we are close to the new season kicking off when we start doing our 1 to 24 videos, and it is League One up first here this close season on the Benjamin Bloom football channel. They kick off on Friday night in the third tier, and we are going to be trying to predict the entire league table from bottom to top. Each and every team. You can see the terrified look in my eyes. I can feel all of your hopes, the pressure on my shoulders. Some of you are going to be let down. Some of you are going to be happy. I guess the earlier you are in the video, the more let down you're going to feel. The later, the happier you are likely to feel. We'll see. Get involved in the comments. It's all a little bit of fun. Everybody keep calm. The average comment on one of these videos is A, very emotional, B, only concerns one team of the team the commenter supports, and C, wants that team to be at least 5 places higher, even if I got them in third or something. But there you go. Get involved in the comments. We are going to get into it right now. And the thing with these 1 to 24s is nobody thinks their team is going to get relegated. Nobody expects that to be them. It's always going to be somebody else. But let me tell you, in League One, this is the most pronounced it is across all of these, because not only are some teams definitely getting relegated, 4 of them are going down. So just open up your brain, open up your mind to the thought. Remember the National Lottery? It could be you. It really, really could be. And, you know, I've said a million times on the channel, I think it's ridiculous that 4 teams do go down. And I always say that 21st in League One is pretty much the unluckiest place you can be in the pyramid. But someone's going to occupy those spots. I've delayed too long. The first team I'm predicting to be relegated from League One into League Two, and they were there not so long ago, is Northampton Town. I covered them when I was working on the EFL show. I covered the promotion under John Brady back a couple of seasons ago. They've been knocking on the door, and then if you look, a kind of long-term peak for the club, 14th in League One. The era with Brady ended, and it was always Brady and Hoskins scoring all the goals, and you feel like that's just dropping off. 19th last season, Kevin Nolan coming in. Bit of tidying up to do squad-wise going into this season. And I think, and I'll mention this a lot in the video, I do think clubs have their kind of general gravitational pull and place in the hierarchy. And I do think Northampton don't tend to spend masses of time in League One in recent years, do they? And I think that's going to see them dropping out this season. So sorry, Northampton fans. There you go. We've got the worst one out of the way. But we're going to have some unhappy Burton fans. And if you've followed League One the past couple of seasons, Burton tend to start really badly, sack the manager, and then improve loads and then survive. And I just feel you cannot do that forever. It is kind of a small setup there, and we've seen Burton come up from the non-league as far as the Championship. In fact, they've been absolutely superb in terms of punching their weight. And you do wonder whether, I don't know, is it, like I was saying about Northampton just a second ago, is it just a natural pull? They're definitely circling the drain. If 21st in League One is the unluckiest place in the pyramid, then maybe 20th is a little bit lucky, and Burton have finished there the last 2 seasons, 1 place above relegation. Gary Bowyer got the bounce last season. I'm going to go for it. You'd assume he won't last the season if my predictions are going to be correct here, and I'm going to go for Burton for the levy to break and then finally to drop. That's a bit disappointing. I've got Wimbledon in 22nd, who obviously get a lot of love just for historic reasons and kind of reflexive sympathy reasons. But yeah, they've had 3 years down in League Two, and fair play. It's got to be the right manager, but they're stuck with the manager, Johnny Jackson, there, and he's taken them 21st, 10th, and they got a sniff of it last year, 5th in the playoffs, and they won it. And it was all based on just an incredible defensive record. And obviously, we spoke about this with Sam on the check-in, and when we did the sort of playoff predictions at large, he's very clued in with what's going on down at AFC Wimbledon. And we kind of knew that was going to be the case. Can they do that in League One? I don't know. I haven't got them finishing bottom on the basis that it will work up to a point. But then I just think size and scale, easy for me to say, it's going to be too difficult. And if you're Wimbledon and you've kind of punched your way in, I think the 4 teams relegated is a real killer. And a real killer is finishing in the unluckiest position, I can't speak this morning, in English football. In 21st, our 4th relegated League One team. I've gone for Exeter, and again, I've gone for the club's kind of general level. They were in League Two for forever, weren't they? And Matty Taylor took them up a few seasons ago, and it was all incredibly positive. And then 14th and 13th, and Taylor goes off to Rotherham, and Caldwell comes in, and a bit of a slip down to 16th last season. And I just wonder whether, given the kind of idea that the momentum of teams coming up from League Two to League One, my God, look at what Orient and Stockport and Wrexham and etc. have done in the last few seasons. You know, you do feel that might drag Exeter a little bit lower, and there isn't anywhere else to go then, is there? So I've got Exeter dropping back into League Two. There you go. That's the hardest bit out of the way. Get your thoughts down there in the comments. And all I'll say, stay calm as ever, and 4 teams will go down. So if you're really angry at me predicting your team to go down, then I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same thing. Put your neck on the line. Make someone else angry and predict your 4 teams to be relegated from League One. Surviving, I've got Mansfield, who were crazy last season, weren't they? They finished 3rd in League Two the season prior to get themselves up under Nigel Clough. And they were really good at the start of the season. And we were like, oh, they're really fun. They're scoring loads of goals, always predicting both teams to score in the predictions with Matt SB. And then you're like going, could they do top 10? And then could they do playoffs? You never know. And then they were just hopeless, weren't they? Cascaded right down the table. Really terrible form. So I'm pitching it that, well, I finished 17th in the end last season. I'm pitching it that it was momentum that got them the hot start there. I'm sure they'll win some games in terms of against good sides as well in high-scoring fashion, but don't think it's viable across the season. And I've got them just surviving there in 20th. Below Port Vale. So it is the kind of belief that the smallest gap here in the 92 certainly is if you're a League Two team promoted to League One, and especially I guess if you're Port Vale, who literally were, you know, this is a yo-yo, isn't it? They were in League Two 2 seasons ago. Darren Moore has got them, in League One, excuse me. Darren Moore has got them straight out of League Two. And speaking of Darren Moore, I think that's somebody who knows the lay of the land in League One. Got Sheffield Wednesday promoted out of it. Obviously, it's very different managing Port Vale and Sheffield Wednesday in League One, isn't it? But I feel momentum, manager, and the fact that the gap is smaller in terms of League Two and League One means that, well, you've already realised I've got all 3 of the promoted teams surviving. And here comes another one. Bradford City. It's easy to get confused with Bradford because I look at all sorts of data when I do these, and I do look at the betting markets. And sometimes when you get a club that's just been promoted, the feeling's high and the market goes behind them, particularly fans. And B, when it's Bradford as well, and you talk about big fish, small pond. Well, I mean, in League Two, if they're a big fish in terms of even in League One terms, aren't they? And obviously we've had Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich and Birmingham last season, and Sheffield United and Derby and Charlton, you could say as well. And I don't know, it feels like a little bit, is that era over? So we're going to go on and talk about Reading and Cardiff and Bolton, but yeah, Bradford kind of go in there, and that's a very long-winded way of me saying that don't get confused sometimes by the betting, which I think had Bradford maybe 4 or 5 places higher than I've got them. I just feel, have they ever really been that good a side in League Two? Been in there 6 years. And when I was covering on the ITV show, it was always, oh, they're not very good, and then Andy Cook scores 25 every season, and they kind of get in the playoffs, and then they lose. And even last season, they just scraped over the line. And if you're following League Two, Walsall had a gigantic collapse to kind of let them in as well. So I don't think this is a side with a massive amount of momentum coming up. But I do think size and scale and scope will help them. And I'm sure over a longer time horizon, they'll push their way up League One. And yeah, you know how that ends. 17th, I've gone for Stevenage. And again, I'm playing the club's histories and levels and whatnot. And it's a brilliant peak under Steve Evans, where they literally went from the bottom of League Two to second in League Two to 9th in League Two. And I've got to admit, you can check back, I'll link it at the end of the video actually, what I did last season. I bet I had Stevenage similar place. I thought they would fall off like nobody's business after the big peak and the manager goes. Alex Ravel did really well actually, but they did still drop 5 down to 14. So I don't think they're going to go down, but I do think that pull will still be a little bit further down. I've got them dropping 3 to 17th, but I still say, and I hate to be patronising, I always say this about League One, it's the meeting of teams that have been in the Premier League sometimes and, you know, teams that have been in the non-league, and you just have to tip your cap to those that, you know, have got the smaller setups and whatnot. And we've already mentioned a few, and Stevenage is probably one of them. And yeah, even though I've got them trending down, that's no mean feat what they're up to at the moment. Trending up massively is the team in the division probably with the most momentum, is Doncaster, who obviously won League Two. And they've gone 18th, 15th, first. So it's a massive jump last season under Grant McCann, who I like very much. Grant McCann has won League One fairly recently, hasn't he, with Hull City, and he's been here with Peterborough. And I don't think he's a League Two manager, but I know he'd been at Doncaster before, so that was probably the pull to get him back. So I think that's a really... I'm going quite hard on the manager there in terms of McCann. And if you do it as a little mini league, I mean, go figure, I've literally got the order. No, I haven't. I've got Port Vale, did finish above, then Bradford, and then I've got Doncaster. So I've got Doncaster the highest of the 3, and I've got them comfortably surviving really in 16th, if there is such thing as comfortable survival in the 24-team league, where 4 go down. Deary me, when are they going to change that? 15th, Lincoln City. I think a lot of people will have them higher than I've got them, but I don't know. I just feel that the trend is down. And I think when Skubala first went in, you know, you kind of, can you repeat what Michael Appleton did? I think they finished 5th, and they got to the playoff final as well, didn't they, Lincoln? Who did they lose to? Blackpool, was it? A couple of years ago. Neil Critchley. You can still find him. But yeah, they've generally, that seems a bit of a peak, and then they've dropped 7th down to 11th last season. So I'm wondering whether that is going to continue. I know they're normally kind of looked upon as well-run and progressive, Lincoln, but yeah, everything has to kind of be in a row for, you know, just constant improvement, doesn't it? So I've gone for a 4-place drop again for the second season running, Lincoln to drop to 15th. 14th, Peterborough. I mean, this is confusing me because every year it'd be like, okay, fine, when we're doing League One, so Peterborough, they're going to go somewhere in the top 6, probably have 2 strikers score 25 goals, something. One of which they're going to sell for 5 million quid to someone in the Championship at the start of the next season or what have you. But it all just went south last season, and it's a bit of a theme in League One, the failure of the likes of Peterborough, Barnsley, Bolton, who'd all been in the playoffs 2 years running, all kind of proverbially soiled the bed, didn't they? But I think it's going to be quite tricky for Peterborough to get back. Just in terms of, and look, we say this on all the 1 to 24s, here's my top 6. There's 15 teams in it. But I think there's going to be traffic ahead of Peterborough. And yes, I could see them, do what they normally do and score loads of goals and bring through players and particularly strikers, don't they? And be up near the top. But you could also, it was bad last season. And I know they won at Wembley, didn't they? Beat Birmingham at Wembley in the Shield, whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called now. But yeah, a lot of dynamic range on Peterborough. I think you could put them most places in the table and, kind of argue it, and people will probably have to go, yeah, I could probably see that happening. But yeah, gone are the days of Posh, naturally in my top 6. And speaking of natural top 6, I've got Barnsley dropping another place, finished 12th last season. And maybe, am I just destroying the natural order here in League One? They've gone for Conor Hourihane, so they've gone for a very young, unproven manager. Who they have last season? It was Darryl Clark, wasn't it? First off. But it was playoffs, 4th and 6th. They were unlucky under Mike Duff, weren't they? Not to go up. Lost the next season and then dropping down into mid-table. So I've got them roughly similar place, but then I've got a couple of people overtaking them. So it's a drop into the bottom half. Could be badly wrong about that. Barnsley, their level is normally they beat up in League One and do really well. So it's a bit of a gamble, that one. But love Conor Hourihane as a player, by the way. But yeah, just not enough to go on. And there's a few managers I'm about to talk about that are very savvy and know this league very well. One of them, you can argue, is Ryan Lowe, who's in at Wigan. Although you could argue that he left Plymouth and his best work was actually done lower down the pyramid. He left Plymouth in League One, but he left them near the top of it. It just feels like Wigan are going to be quite hard to get going again. It feels like, what did they do? Bottom of the Championship, and then we had a takeover, didn't we? Points deductions and craziness going on. 12th, 15th. So I've got them bouncing back to 12th. It's not a very creative prediction there. I do think Lowe is a safe pair of hands and he'll get it moving, but it might take more. It came in last season, and it might take more than one pre-season, say, to do it. But we are now into, when I said about League One, this is the meeting of ex-Premier League teams and, well, we've already had Bradford, haven't we? And teams with non-league setups. We are now, with the likes of Wigan, into teams that have done really big things in the last couple of decades. And are they going back in that direction? Can they re-find their old selves? Leyton Orient, 11th. You could probably argue, even though Birmingham scored a zillion points last season, that Leyton Orient were kind of the best performing story, weren't they? Maybe Stockport as well. But Leyton Orient went first in League Two, 11th in League One, and you're like, okay, that's going to be the peak. And then 6th. And they got through the semi-finals against Stockport and lost in the playoff final. So I love Richie Wellens. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But surely Kelman, who scored all their goals, the lad who's gone to Swansea, Galbraith has gone. I think the keeper was on loan, wasn't he? So he's gone. And even though I think Wellens is good, I think if you take a manager that was already punching in a club that was already punching, and then you've got to rebuild the team, yes, he can do it. Surely he can't do it straight away, can he? Even though I do think he's a tremendous manager. So I'll keep Orient in the top half, but I've got a drop of 5 places purely on the basis that they were so good last season and that team has been broken up. 10th, I've gone for Reading. I've got no idea where to put Reading, frankly. So the good news is that the chaos is, fingers crossed, over and Mr. Dai Young is out and not the owner of the club anymore. Ruben Sellers, I think I'd have probably had him in the playoffs if Ruben Sellers was still there. And that's no knock on Hunt. But I just think Sellers is really, really good. I really, really rate him. And I think he'll do... Look, he's got a Sheffield United gig. He's got a Year 2 parachute team in the Championship, hasn't he? So... I thought Reading, along with Leyton Orient, punched to be 7th last season. If they'd have got in the playoffs, that would have been absolutely sensational. So I mean, look, Reading fans, would you take this? Just a boring season in 10th, score, what would it be in 10th for like 60, 65 points or, thereabouts. Win some games, build some stars, don't get any points deductions, no tennis balls on the pitch, and Noel Hunt learns the ropes a little bit more there. So, that's where I'm going for Reading. I don't think they can repeat the heroics in adversity of last season. Right, 9th. I could be really wrong about this, but and maybe this is my lived experience and implicit bias, I just don't see Rotherham struggling in League One for long. Just in the time I've been doing the channel, if Rotherham are in League One, under the, the kind of Tony Stewart regime it's been, hasn't it? With Paul Warne, a lot of it. They've just been challenging, and they tried the Steve Evans thing, and it just didn't work, did it? Wrong guy at the wrong time. I know he'd been there before, and he'd done brilliant at Stevenage, but I think Hamill can turn it back around. They were only 13th in the end, and I just think they're a strong League One club, aren't they, Rotherham? And I don't think it's a stretch for me to push them up 4 back into the top 10. But I think quite a lot of you, when you put your predictions in the comments, might have Rotherham, a few years of regression now. But we will see. I've got the improvement, but I'm a bit nervous about that one, I've got to say. 8th, I've got Wycombe. And I know these are people's livelihoods and life's work, but the feeling around Mike Dodds after he replaced Matt Bloomfield last year was not good. So I'm almost thinking, is this probably they'll finish 8th having struggled with a different manager than they start the season? I hope I'm wrong. I don't want anyone to struggle in work or lose their jobs, and I hope he turns it round. But look, mate, it was a difficult job, wasn't it? Because Matt Bloomfield at points had them even ahead of Birmingham. I know there was a kind of games in hand issue and whatnot, but they were superb, weren't they, Wycombe? And when you saw them in the playoffs, and it was horrible games against Charlton, wasn't it? And it was just like they're just trying to hang in there. Charlton are going to win this, and Wycombe are just trying to make it as ugly as possible and not lose. And can they get it to penalties and get to the final? And I don't know. Is there a sense that the Ainsworth years that we're just regressing to the mean? They've got money, haven't they, Wycombe? So we'll see what they do. If they can keep hold of that Kone up top, that'll help. But he might well end up in the Championship, mightn't he? So, yeah, don't want anyone to lose their jobs. But maybe it might be a not fun start, a new manager, and then a push up to 8th as the season goes on. Blackpool. I think quite a few people will put Blackpool in the playoffs. I've struggled just to not have my 6 playoff teams in there. So I could see Blackpool getting in the playoffs. This is predictable Ben prediction here. 8th, 9th, 7th. Has Brucey still got it? He's definitely still got the charisma, and the players blooming love him, don't they? And that man management style. I just wonder whether some of these teams we're about to talk about might have a bit more in terms of modern competitive nous in the dugout. Am I being horribly unfair on Brucey there? They've lost the winger, the lad who went to Charlton, who's now the Apter from last season as well. But it's a proper Steve Bruce team now. He's bringing in some proper blokes, isn't he? With Ihekwe coming in at centre half, and the lad from Stockport as well. So, look, they could score loads of points and, be in the playoffs. I'm going to predictably have them just outside. So here comes my top 6. And I do this every year in every league. I have a team, and it's Plymouth this year, where I'm like, I have got no idea what's going to happen. I think they're going to be good, so I'm just going to stick them in the playoffs and hedge my bets. Because if they finish now 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, I can say, well, I had them in the playoffs, didn't I? But so I'm half going off what Sam Parkins said to me. He saw Plymouth a few times last year. Watford a few times last year. And quite liked what Cleverley was trying to do in chaotic circumstances there. Part of me is remembering, as an Ipswich fan, going against a very, very well-run club who got astonishing 101-point total. So You could put in the comments, Ben, those two things could be completely irrelevant. And you could be right. And I could be wrong. And Plymouth could be, oh, look, how low are they going to go? They're not going to be lower than 9th or 10th, are they? Still with the power in their squad. I know Hardy has gone and he's been very good. And I know Muslik leaving is going to upset the apple cart. But I think Cleverley's going to be good. And I think having made their mistake with Rooney and the hires, and Muslik was obviously a good one, I think we get normal Plymouth resumed and well run and good decisions and success on the pitch. So I've got them finishing in the playoffs, but frankly, I have no earthly Scooby-Doo. And speaking of the Plymouth team that scored 101 points, I'm going to back the manager of that team to score lots of points this year with Bolton Wanderers, and that guy is Stephen Schumacher. And look, was it just the end of a run with Ian Evatt where they'd done really, really well? They'd come up from League Two. They've been in the playoffs a couple of times and just choked, hadn't it, particularly in that final against Oxford. They were rubbish, weren't they? Just didn't turn up, Bolton. And he probably should have got them up, Evatt, shouldn't he? And he didn't. And then it turns, doesn't it? And it's a shame. And it had to end, didn't it? I remember seeing the pictures of the Bolton fans. It had turned. But I think Schumacher's great. I think he's a really good manager. Lovely energy about him. And yeah, just a astonishing job to score 101 points with Plymouth up against Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday with probably 5x the budget of what they had. So I think the combination of Bolton, who, you know, have stuffed it up really in the last couple of seasons, in my humble opinion. Take that as backhanded praise, Bolton fans. It's like, you know, the size and scale and squad as well. Maybe they should already be in the Championship, shouldn't they? So I'll stick them in the playoffs and leave it at that. I'm sure the Bolton fans won't appreciate another. Well, they had a lovely trip to Wembley, didn't they, in the Pizza Cup? But yeah, another playoff campaign might not be the one. But yeah, Bolton and Schumacher in 5th, and Huddersfield in 4th. I think a lot of you lot are going to have them in the top 2, aren't you? Because they've spent a load of money, haven't they? And they spent a load of money in January as well, didn't they? And really backed. And it didn't work with Mike Duff. And I believe the, is it Cartwright, the sporting director, that's changed as well. And Alfie May is like the ultimate, you know, Bob Taylor, Steve Bull, whoever, Sean Goater, Sean Goater went way higher than that, didn't he? Say Steve Bull, to be fair, but League One bagsman, isn't he? Marcus Harness is gone, but it's just, is Lee Grant going to step up to management? And, you know, you can do the CV thing and say, yeah, of course he will. You can do the, you know, it's worked for Ipswich with, say, Kieran McKenna, and Birmingham with Chris Davies, you know, taking a coach who's worked at elite level with, say, Manchester United and obviously been promoted, working at Ipswich under McKenna from League One. But you can just never know. You can never know. I always used to look at David Platt and you'd think this guy was an amazing player, and he worked under Graham Taylor and I don't know, whoever in Italy, Sven for Sampdoria, Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. You think this guy's going to be an incredible manager, and it just doesn't transmit. And then David Platt's an assistant manager, isn't he? And you just don't know. So if Lee Grant, the CV adds up and the emotional intelligence we think he's got, and he can just step into that. I know he's been very keen to do it, but I just don't know. If he does all of that, they'll probably finish in the top 2, Huddersfield, because you think Mr. Nagel, whatever he wants his name said, the owner will go again in January and back him. They seem hell-bent on getting out of League One. If not, he'll probably sack him, won't he? Because it's been like that at Huddersfield, hasn't it? But yeah, that's why I haven't put them in the top 2. And I've got a feeling a lot of you are going to put them in the top 2. But I went back and forth on this. I did, and I've gambled a little bit on my top 2, I have to say. Got a bit of fun with it, haven't you? 3rd place, Stockport, who finished 3rd last season. Absolutely brilliant, Stockport, haven't they? For 5 or 6 years now. And I've got to say, and I've said this a lot, and I'm contradicting myself with this prediction, having them 3rd. We've seen them National League, lose playoffs, get promoted. League Two, lose playoffs, get promoted. League One, what did they do last year? Lost in the playoffs. The pattern does say they'll get promoted. I just wonder now, even though they're well backed and well supported, and they've got, I'm sure they must have the longest serving manager there, do they? No, Clough will be at Mansfield, but Challoner will be close, won't he? And he's taken Stockport up the leagues, hasn't he? I just wonder whether the nature of what they're up against might mean it might take a couple of seasons longer to be automatically promoted. I've got no doubt they're going to be right up there. And I think when I did the last bookies video, they weren't. It was a nice price. I remember saying that at the time. Excuse me, let me just take a drink. I remember saying at the time, if there's value anywhere there, back Stockport, because it does seem long and it seems the market doesn't fancy them. And of course, the market always goes on the relegated championship teams or the clubs with, bigger fan bases, etc., who get backed in. But I think Stockport are going to be close. I think they're going to be right up there. I think it could be 80 points plus again. But I've just gambled on particularly the next side I'm going to talk about being ahead of them. So yeah, let me know where you're placing Stockport. Whether you're going with the bookies or whether you're going with the history repeating itself and them actually getting the automatic promotion this season. Right, that's a gamble. That's a big gamble. So I've got Cardiff in second. I'm gambling a bit on the manager. And I know I said I didn't think it would work out for League One. I just think Brian Barry Murphy, he's been linked with so many jobs. And finally, someone's taken the punt on him. And it's Cardiff. And I do think size and scale. I mean, this is a team that finished 12th in the Championship 2 seasons ago. I know Mr. Tan has been a bit of a poxy owner, hasn't he? I'm sure the Cardiff fans would put that in more floral language than me in the comments. I just wonder whether Cardiff could just be one of those teams that we sometimes get at League One level, where they come down and it's just, no, we're too big for this, and they just win and they rack up 85 points or whatever. I'm thinking, like, do you remember that year? Was it Blackburn and Wigan with Mowbray and Paul Kirk? And it was just like, no, we don't do League One. We're going back to the Championship. I just wonder whether you could get that with Cardiff. So I've gone for them above Stockport. I'll caveat all of this. You could see Stockport above them. I could see Huddersfield as well in that top two. But I have gone for Cardiff. I've got to say, if anyone else I haven't mentioned there in my top four gets in there, I would be, go figure. I haven't put them in. I would be surprised. But yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble there. Cardiff City to yo-yo and bounce straight back. And you all know who my winner of League One is. And I reckon 8 out of 10 of you will have Luton winning League One. And probably 9 out of 10 of you will have them automatically promoted. And 10 out of 10 of you, I reckon, will have them in the top 6. Yeah? Could be wrong about that, but let me know in the comments. And it just feels like the disaster of last season and hanging on to Rob Edwards too long and saving your Premier League TV money for a stadium and not maybe investing in players while you're up there with the money in the way that teams that get promoted do tend to nowadays. And then the ridiculous rising tide at the end of last season, the antics of, say, Oxford, Pompey, particularly at home, Derby County under Eustace, Hull under Ruben Sellers. I just think it was a perfect SHIT storm, wasn't it, for Luton? And here they are now in League One with a year 2 parachute payment. So they're going to have way more money than anybody else. I know it would be very on brand for Luton to kind of not spend it and, let it burn a hole in their pocket and be very sensible and cautious about it. They also have the manager who, when we were talking about Wickham earlier, had Wickham for quite a while into the season. Maybe, someone look it up, maybe 10, 15-ish games above Birmingham City, who I think the general consensus are the greatest League One team of all time. So if you're above them for 2 seconds, then drink it in. And that's before you even get to what Luton are bringing down in terms of not just Championship contracts, Premier League contracts. So unless the club at Luton is just in a tumultuous losing state and they can't turn it around, and the board have lost the management, and the management have lost the fans, and the fans have lost the board, and these guys just can't win a game, and, you know, that's the only way I can see it, some weird, intangible crisis of culture at Luton, then surely they will win the league in terms of squad, manager, and all of the other things I have mentioned. And boring as it seems, football goes with the money. Even if I was doing a Championship 1 to 24, and watch where I put Sheffield United, I will say they've got a year 2 parachute payment and they're in the Championship, yeah? And we're talking about Luton in League One. That should be enough for Luton. So they'll have gone 3rd Championship promoted, 18th Premier League relegated, 22nd Championship relegated. I remember Man City doing this with Joe Royle, where like 6 years in a row they were either promoted or relegated. Well, I'm going for a 4th season in a row, and Luton to win League One. There you go, Bang Crash Wallop. We got through it. Guys, these are really, really fun. They always do really, really well on the channel. So now it's over to you, and get involved in the comments. Now, this can be a really, really fun thing for everybody to do, particularly if you put your own 1 to 24 in and have a go yourself and compare notes. And if you want to say in a very lovely, friendly, balanced way, oh, Ben, you've got Barnsley 13th. I've got them in 6th. I'll see you at the end of the season, or what have you. Then we can have a bit of fun with it. Now, of course, the internet and YouTube is a massively, horribly toxic place at times. And if you factor in the sheer emotions of football fans and the fact that everyone is full of hope in the close season, we get some awful, horrible, abusive, really tantrumy 3-year-old comments where people are so triggered and angered and unhappy that this bloke on the internet made a prediction about the football club they support that has made them not feel very good. And it's like, guys, I know it's not nice to not feel very good, but keep calm. Yeah, take a beat. It's just some predictions. Let me say this to you right now. I'm going to look right down the ball of the camera. I hope all your teams have amazing seasons. I hope you have a great time in 25-26 watching your team. I know football means a lot to you, and you may be really happy in your life when your team is doing well. I am telling you, as a fact, I have no agenda against any team. Not being funny, don't flatter yourself. Honestly, I don't have an agenda. I literally make data and make predictions, and it's a bit of fun. So let's keep it cool in the comments. But please do get involved. What did we say we were going to link up here? I'll put last year's League One predictions. You can see how much I've messed it up last year. And a brilliant chat here, looking at the entirety of League One with Callum Fowler, who's a great YouTuber and a Barnsley fan. So he won't like my Barnsley 13th one bit.